Honestly, the biggest mistake I see when walleye fishing is guys are fishing too slow and too inefficiently. What is going on, guys? Thank you for tuning in to Tom Talk number 1. This is a new, well, let me prelude this. My boat is put away. I am waiting for ice to form on some of the big lakes. So I'm gonna get this going now. Hopefully this is gonna be a weekly vlog kind of highlighting, using the bigger videos I've done over the summer and throughout the winter as kind of pillars, and this will be the information that doesn't really fit in the videos, but is information that you guys are gonna learn a ton from. These are gonna be extremely information packed. I might ramble on for a long time, but that's just, I get very excited about the technical side of fishing, especially if it helps you guys get on fish. So today we're going to be talking about speed and efficiency and how they relate to walleye fishing. Walleye fishing is kind of in this, they get put under this category of being a very slow, finicky, lethargic fish for much of the season, when really it's all about how you target them, how you fish for them. Walleyes are absolutely one of my favorite fish to target all season long, but I fish them extremely fast, extremely efficiently. So right away we're going to dig into how speed and efficiency relate to walleye fishing. Now, as the season progresses, how fast and how efficiently you fish changes. So we're going to kind of run it spring to fall essentially. So starting in the spring, how do you fish fast and efficiently to catch more fish? Well, that's pretty simple. When I'm fishing shallow water, my sonar is less of a tool than when I am fishing deep water. In the spring, I would say in the Hayward area, I'm sure your area is very similar, the months of May through, I would say, the end of June are our best shallow water bites. On a clear lake, I'm going to say 17 feet and shallower. On a dirty lake, I'm going to say 10 feet and shallower. These fish spawn in very shallow water. They pull out, all life's up shallow in the warm water that time of year. And when you're in shallow water like that, you're not going to be marking big schools of fish directly under your boat. Now, with that being said, there are ways, side imaging to find fish, stuff like that, but these fish are very ramped up and they're very hungry in the months of May and June. I will fish large areas extremely fast that time of year. This is the one time of year where I'm not looking for a big school of fish right under me fishing vertically. I am basically finding productive structure. And what I mean by that, let's say I'm fishing a rock or a weed hump that tops out at 8 feet. Well, I'm not going to fish this massive flat, connected to it. I'm going to pick out, let's say, the crown of it. I'm going to pick out an arm that swings out to deep water from it. If I'm fishing a giant weedy bay, I'm going to focus on the weed point that comes out into the main lake, out from the bay. I'm not going to fish the whole bay, and this is how you use the fishing and the presentation and fish fast to, let's say, find the fish. Now, if I fish this big weed bed and I catch 3 fish on this weed point, at that point I might go back and slip bobber in there and slow down. But you efficiently cover water very fast, and I will do that with a couple of tools. My favorite one probably being a jig and a plastic, whether that's a minnow profiling plastic or a swim bait. A couple of my favorite walleye baits right there in the spring months, May and June. And I'll either rig that on a 1/4 ounce if I'm fishing shallower than 10 feet, or I'll rig it on a 3/8 or a half if I'm fishing like that 12 to 15, 17 foot zone. And I'll fish extremely fast. I'm doing a lot of ripping. It's probably one of my favorite bites of the season, just because you're actively hunting these very active fish up shallow. They're very willing to bite most of the time, and it's an awesome pattern. It's a very interactive style of jigging, and you hardly see anybody doing it up here, which is just bizarre. But this is the time of year, May and June, where you integrate speed into your fishing system, how you're fishing. And at that point, a lot of times you don't have to go back and slip bobber. You can just keep reworking the spot once you find the fish with your plastics. You fish very, very fast, and this is how you find fish. I rely less on this finding fish for me in the months of May and June than any other time of year. But what I will use this for is finding the structure, seeing the good weeds, stuff like that to kind of hone me in on where these fish are going to be. If I fish a stretch of water and I don't get a bite, I'm not going back there. It's not that, oh, maybe they're there, they didn't bite, let's try to coax some fish out of there. Very rarely is that the case. One tool I have implemented over the past couple of years has been an underwater camera scouting for fish in weeds, which has been very productive. I'll throw it behind my boat, I'll let about 50 feet of cable out, and I'll putt around at a mile, half an hour, and just keep that camera just kind of skirting the tops of the weeds. And you know, obviously any walleye you come in contact with, you know, you're gonna see it right there. So you know, that's how I pick apart weeds. Now, if you don't have a camera, that's fine. You fish very fast, you fish baits that you have a lot of confidence in, and you're gonna get bit. Once you are getting bit, you go back and you keep making pass and pass and pass through that area. Or you look at your sonar GPS and say, let's go find another area that looks just like that. So that's how you develop a pattern. That's how you find fish. That's how you fish efficiently in the months of May and June in the Hayward area here. So now we are moving into summer. I always say every season is my favorite season, but I really love summer fishing. Efficiency is just, this is where it makes a difference between catching 0 fish and catching 60 walleyes in a day. It's really that important. And but what I mean by that is midsummer is the time of year where you are gonna see the biggest schools of walleyes you will see all year long. How do you find those? This guy is your absolute best friend this time of year. You are physically, this is the time of year where you are physically looking for the fish directly below your boat, and you are fishing in the school. You might be fishing in the school for 30 seconds, you might be fishing in the school for 10 minutes, but most of the time it's somewhere between 30 seconds and 2 minutes that you're actually fishing in a school of fish, because they move so fast this time of year. This is also the time of year where location is predictable, yet you just have to find where the fish are located on the spot. So if I'm picking apart a main lake reef like this, let's say this is a rock hump, tops out at 23 feet of water, and you know, there's big boulders on here. You know there's going to be walleyes relating to this rock hump in some fashion. It's just a matter of are they off the drop, are they on top, are they kind of running around one corner of it. Typically what I see this time of year on our natural clear lakes in this area, and many lakes around the state, you're getting big clusters of walleyes that are starting to stack vertically. It doesn't really matter. You see this a lot on both mudflats and rocks. On weeds, you might not have quite the same vertical stack of fish. They might be a little bit more matted on the bottom. Either way, this is the time of year where these fish are very tightly bundled together. There's 2 tools I use to fish this time of year. One is a slip bobber. Typically I'll use that in like late June into July. And then once fish move even deeper, I will begin using my absolute favorite walleye bait, the Rapala jigging wrap or lures like that, just because of how efficient they are. You open up the bail, it shoots down to bottom in no time, you're jigging. A lot of times they're already on by the time you hit bottom. Very efficient way to fish. And even though you might think, oh, a slip bobber, that's, you know, you got to go so slow. False. I do what I call power slip bobbering. By no means did I invent this tactic at all. Extremely fast, extremely efficient way to fish a slip bobber for fish that maybe don't want that bait that's moving really fast. I'll throw a video of, I actually filmed some stuff power slip bobbering in the Hayward area here this summer. I'll throw that down in the description below. But this is the time of year when you fish the fastest, and you absolutely rely on this to put you on top of fish. It's always funny, this time of year I'll have guys out and they'll open up, I'll say, all right, drop. You know, I'll be driving the big motor, I'll slam it into reverse, back up over the fish, say drop. They'll be dropping their baits, they'll make one jig and I'll say reel up, and they always look at me like, you know, what are you talking about? That's how fast these fish move. Very rarely in the middle of summer will I ever actually turn my big motor off. That is how much moving you actually do. And you will catch more fish fishing that way, don't get me wrong. Now, if we're going to touch on some locations real quick, if I'm fishing deep clear lakes, I might in that you know, late June through July period, I might be on a weed edge. There will absolutely always be fish in the weeds in the summer, fall, and spring months. But typically, if I'm on my deep clear lakes that time of year, I'm fishing rock humps, and I would say that 15 to 28 foot zone. I am fishing mud flats, you know, in whatever depth they exist. Typically it's like a 20 to 35 foot here in my area. But you know, you might be thinking about what I'm saying right now and say, man, that's a lot of different kind of, you know, that's a lot of spots. They can either be in weeds, they can be in rocks, they can be in mud. But you don't fish unless you see the fish. You drive around, and having the confidence in what you're seeing is walleyes, you know, only takes time. I think something, if you guys don't have a camera, I think something that'll help you out is, it's only gonna be a few things. Smallmouth will pile up on rocks, or sometimes a weed edge, but most of the time, smallmouth are gonna pile up on rocks. Perch will pile up on mud flats or weed edges, very rarely on rock in those months here in this area. And a jig and rap's gonna catch smallmouth. Smallmouth will bite a jig and rap. Perch are gonna bite a leech. So put those two baits on, fish fast, fish in the fish, really focus on your boat control, and you're gonna really, learn what's what really quick. You're gonna see that there's a very, very different way that walleyes stack up versus how smallmouth will kind of use a piece of structure. Walleyes will be very tight, very cloud-like, and they'll move around very fast. But yeah, then you kind of get to the end of summer, things start sliding deeper and deeper and deeper. We might be doing more mud flat stuff that time of year. And then, fall comes. Water starts cooling and things change. So now we transition into the fall time. It's mid-September at this point. Our temps have started to cool. We have fish scattering at this point. Fish are on the move. They're not where you've been catching them for the last month and a half, 2 months now. And, a lot of guys struggle in this early mid-fall period before fish really set up in late fall locations. And it absolutely comes down to speed and efficiency once again. This isn't, if you don't have a lot of fish in a lot of areas, you're not gonna spend a lot of time fishing an area, obviously. If you have a lot of fish in certain areas, you would spend a lot of time there. If you have a lot of fish in very few areas, fish are more scattered, you're on the go constantly. This time of year, basically what I'll do, you're gonna have a shallow water push of some fish. Some fish are gonna kind of linger, similar to summer locations, kind of between there and between fall locations. By fall locations, I mean shallower weed growth, shallower rock bar, stuff like that. Typically this pattern's gonna run into, basically to turnover, you're gonna have this very shallow water bite. After that, what'll happen, after turnover, you're gonna see some fish go very deep, 40, 50 feet in some lakes. If the lake doesn't get that deep, you're gonna have fish in 20, 30 foot holes. You're also gonna have a blast of fish in what I call first ice locations. These are typically the fish I'm targeting, mainly because I think they're more fun to catch and I don't like pulling fish out of 50 feet of water. But these early ice locations are a lot of times very shallow water structures. I was recently on a walleye bite in basically a 13, 14 foot cabbage bed on a lake that gets 70 feet deep. Now this is a very shallow water location for fish when the water temp is 35 degrees, but it's also right where we catch them on tip-ups probably 2 weeks from now. So it all comes, that type of pattern, when you have fish scattering like this, you just gotta fish fast. You gotta have confidence you're on fish. I'll use this for very deep water. If I'm fishing weeds, typically in the fall you're not gonna have these big bundles of fish in the weeds or right on an edge like you might in the midsummer period. These fish are going to be a little bit more scattered throughout a weed bed. One tool I rely on very heavily when I'm fishing weeds is my underwater camera. I'll throw it out behind the boat 50 feet and I'll putt along at a mile an hour, just keeping that camera right above the weed tops, and I'll see obviously every walleye the camera comes in contact with. And that's absolutely one tool that it helps me more for catching fish in weeds, finding what weeds have fish. Also in the fall, the big thing to keep in mind is there will be dying weeds in the lake. And if you're around dying weeds, likely you're not going to be around walleyes. So it also, not only does it find fish for you, but it'll let you know what weeds are alive. Maybe they have perch in them. It pieces together a lot of the pieces of the puzzle that this just can't tell you. It's your eyes underwater. So, keep that in mind. That, this fall and late fall period, speed and efficiency are still huge because you're always hunting fish. You're just not really sure exactly where they're going to be. Versus the midsummer when you might know exactly where they're going to be, you're just not sure how they're relating on the spot at a given time. So once again, speed and efficiency, absolutely the biggest, most successful parts of the puzzle when catching walleyes all season long. Now the biggest thing you guys are going to struggle with if you're not used to this speed efficiency game is just having the confidence in your sonar to realize that you're looking at walleyes. And that really only comes with time. I'll show a bunch of pictures of walleyes on sonar right here. These are what they look like in my lake. They might stack up differently on your lake. A camera is obviously a huge tool to use and utilize, really all season long for walleyes until you get your confidence in this and you know what you're looking at. The other way you can gain a lot of confidence in your sonar, is you know, fishing something you know the fish are gonna bite. You know, let's say it's midsummer, you try a couple things, you try jigging Rap and you try a slip bobber and a leech. If you're not getting picked up, you know, the two most common things they're gonna be down there are gonna be perch, maybe smallmouth if you're fishing rocks, or walleyes. You know, and any one of those fish is gonna bite a leech. Smallmouth and walleyes will bite jigging Raps. So you're really gonna find out quick, and the fish absolutely set up differently. You know, especially in the summer months, very rarely will you see small, you know, a stack of fish and you say, oh yeah, that's walleyes, and then it turns out to be, you know, smallmouth or largemouth or perch or really anything else. Walleyes have a very specific way they bundle up very tight and they almost go vertical. Well, they do go vertically stacked in summer months, but it all just comes down to spending time on the boat, looking at stuff with this. Don't slow down, fish fast, and you absolutely will catch more walleyes next season. Thanks for watching, guys. Absolutely subscribe to this channel. Make sure you watch any number of these 3 videos and stay tuned for more.